Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to pull out the really compelling stuff from some fascinating sources. Forget the endless reading. We just bring you the core ideas, maybe with a few surprising details thrown in.
Right. And today, we're looking at this collection of ancient stories, Viḍūḍabha Vatthu.
Exactly. And trust me, these aren't just, dusty old tales. They've got this remarkably sharp take on trust, power, social dynamics.
Themes that are still incredibly relevant.
Totally. They hit just as hard today. So if you're looking to get a fresh angle on these forces, well, you're in the right place.
Yeah. Viḍūḍabha Vatthu. It's Pali language, which was pretty common back then, kind of like English is for many people now. It basically means accounts related to Viḍūḍabha.
Gotcha.
And what we're drawing on, it's partly the narratives, the stories themselves, but also some really illuminating dialogues between the characters.
Okay, so our mission here is pretty simple. Dig out the key insights, those really memorable moments from these old stories.
We want you to get that aha feeling, a richer sense of these basic human dramas.
Without having to wade through tons of text. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with some early alliances, which sounds pretty interesting.
Let's do it. We start with three young guys who became friends. Pasenadi Kumara from Savathi,
Okay.
Mahāli from Vasali, and Bandhula from Kusinara.
Yeah.
They all ended up studying together at Takasila.
Ah, the famous center of learning.
Right, under a well-known teacher.
Right.
And it's there, while they're learning, that this strong friendship develops.
What does that tell us, though, about how leadership and influence worked back then? Were there, specific social things that pushed them together?
That's a good point. It probably says something about shared education, maybe shared ambition. And yeah, it's clear these weren't just passing acquaintances.
Right, because when they go back home, they each really show off some incredible skills. Pasenadi, he impresses his dad so much he gets made king.
A direct link there, yeah.
Yeah.
Skill leading to power, even if it's inherited power being confirmed.
And Mahāli, this is pretty dramatic. He shows his skills to the Licchavis, but so intensely he actually hurts his eye.
Ouch. But it pays off, right?
It does. He gets a huge reward. It's interesting how their first successes are kind of different. Political power, sheer skill display, social influence.
Yeah, different facets. Does that maybe hint at the different roads they'll travel later?
Yeah.
Especially with trust and loyalty.
Could be. And Mahāli's situation, the support he gets immediately. That's fascinating.
It is. The Licchavi rulers, they see his dedication, even with the injury, and they give him this big endowment.
Which lets him teach 500 of their sons.
Exactly. It really shows they valued expertise and, were willing to invest in spreading it.
Definitely. Okay, then there's Bandhula. The Mallas want to test his fighting skills.
And he does something just unbelievable. Slices through 60 bamboo rods bundled together with iron shafts inside them.
After leaping 80 feet in the air, he pulls it off spectacularly. Wow. 80 feet. That paints quite a picture.
It really does. Makes him sound almost legendary.
Well, here's the twist.
Right. Despite this amazing feat, Bandhula shows he's also really smart. He overhears the Mallas talking about how they secretly reinforce the bamboo.
So they were sort of testing him under false pretenses.
Seems like it. And he feels this fundamental lack of trust, maybe even like they're trying to manipulate him. He gets wary about what they might try next.
So he leaves, just like that.
Yeah, he decides Kusinara isn't the place for him. He eventually winds up in Savathi.
Where King Pasenadi recognizes his talent and integrity.
Right, and makes him a general, a trusted general. This early story, it really drives home how feeling trusted or not trusted can totally change your path.
Okay, so let's jump forward a bit. We find King Pasenadi noticing how much support the Buddhist monks are getting. Lots of generosity around.
Right. And he's inspired. He wants to show his support too.
So he invites the Buddha and a whole bunch of monks for a week-long alms offering. A big deal.
A very significant gesture, yeah. Shows his desire to connect with and support that community.
And his intentions seem really good. After that week, he wants to keep it going, offering daily meals to lots of monks.
But the Buddha suggests something more practical.
Yeah, he recommends just sending one monk, Venerable Ananda, to the palace regularly.
Which seems a bit odd, given the king's big offer. Why limit it like that?
Well, maybe it speaks to, not wanting the monks to become too dependent on one person. Practicality.
That makes sense. Monastic discipline, avoiding excess reliance. But then something happens.
Yeah, this subtle thing that says a lot about trust. Over the next few days, King Pasenadi gets busy, forgets to tell his staff properly about the meals.
Uh-oh.
So fewer monks show up each day, until eventually it's just Ananda.
And the king finally notices and is like, what happened? He's confused, maybe a bit hurt.
Right, and this leads to a really key explanation from the Buddha.
This is where Visaso comes in.
Exactly. The Buddha tells him his disciples probably stopped coming because of a lack of Visaso trust.
And he breaks it down, gives specific reasons.
He does. 9 reasons why monks might avoid a household. Things like not feeling welcome, thinking food's being hidden, getting bad offerings, being disrespected, or people just not wanting to listen to their teachings. Little things, but they add up.
And presumably there's a flip side, positive behaviors.
Yep, 9 positive ones too. Basically the opposite. Warm welcomes, respect, offering a seat, not hiding food.
Giving good quality stuff, generously, respectfully.
Being open to the teachings, valuing the monks. It's all about creating that positive environment.
So trust here isn't just about, say, telling the truth. It's more complex. It's about respect, shared values, reliability.
Seems like it. And notice how the Buddha links it to specific actions. It's not just a vague feeling. It's built on how people behave towards each other.
Very practical. Almost like a how-to guide for building good relationships. The text mentions this idea, too, that people with puna, or merit.
Punavanta.
Right. They often act for good reasons, kanvasika, and they tend to stick with families that support them. It reflects that social idea of reputation and reliability.
And to really hammer home this point about trust, the Buddha tells Pasenadi a story from the past about King Kesava.
Ah, yes, Kesava. He gives up his kingdom to become an ascetic.
And 500 guys follow him. That's quite a following.
It is. And among them is his old attendant, Kapaka, who also becomes an ascetic.
So during the rainy season, another king, Brahmadatta of Varanasi, is really impressed by Kesava.
Yeah, by his calmness, his presence. So he offers him nice lodging.
Comfortable digs. But the other 500 ascetics, they're not feeling it.
No, the king's place is too fancy, too opulent for their lifestyle. It makes them uncomfortable.
So they leave, head back to the wilderness.
They do. But Kapaka, his connection to Kesava is deeper.
He stays. Or he leaves and comes back.
He seems uneasy at first, like the others, and maybe leaves with them initially, but eventually he longs to be near Kesava again. He returns even though the others try to talk him out of it.
That really shows loyalty, a strong bond.
Absolutely. And later, Kesava gets really sick while he's separated from his followers.
Oh, no.
But almost miraculously, he recovers only when they're reunited.
Wow. So that connection, that community built on trust, it's almost like medicine.
It suggests a really powerful link, yeah. Emotional, spiritual support, maybe?
Yeah.
Derived from that shared trust.
And the story peaks with this conversation between Narada, who's an envoy from King Brahmadatta.
And Kesava himself. Narada's coming from this royal background, right?
Right. And he asks Kesava, basically, are you really happy with this simple ascetic life?
And Kesava's answer is incredible.
It is. He says something like, even basic food eaten where there's trust is way better than fancy meals where trust is missing.
That's powerful. It really makes you pause and think about what actually nourishes you, doesn't it?
Definitely. And the Buddha explicitly connects this old story back to King Pasenadi's situation.
Saying his own monks, like those wise men, value trust above comfort or status.
Exactly. It reinforces that whole lesson about why the monks stopped coming to the palace. It's all about that trustworthy environment.
Okay, so trust is central. But now the story shifts, right, to something more complicated, involving King Pasenadi and the Buddha's own relatives, the Sakyans.
Yeah, this part gets pretty tangled and ultimately quite tragic. Pasenadi is still trying to build ties with the monks, strengthen that trust.
And he gets the idea to marry one of the Buddha's relatives, sees it as a way to solidify things.
But the Sakyans, they have a very high opinion of themselves, their lineage.
And they kind of look down on Pasenadi, socially speaking. They see him as lower status.
So marrying one of their daughters to him, that feels unequal to them. This whole lineage thing was a huge deal back then.
Absolutely. Their view of their own pure bloodline probably made an equal marriage alliance seem impossible from their side.
So to avoid just saying no and causing conflict,
They resort to a deception, a pretty major one.
Mahāli, a leading Sakyan, agrees to send a daughter. But he sends Vasabhakhattiya.
And the catch is?
The catch is, she's presented as a Sakyan princess, but she's actually his daughter by a slave woman. They hide her true background.
Wow. And Pasenadi has no idea.
None at all. He's thrilled, he marries her, she becomes his chief queen eventually.
And they have a son, Prince Viḍūḍabha.
And for years, this secret just sits there like a ticking clock.
So how does it come out?
Well, the first little crack appears when young Viḍūḍabha asks his mom why he never gets gifts from her family, his maternal relatives.
Innocent question from a kid.
Totally. And Vasabhakhattiya just keeps the lie going, makes excuses like, oh, they live too far away.
Dodging the question.
But the real explosion happens when Viḍūḍabha is 16 and actually visits the Sakyan lands.
Okay, this is the big moment. How does it go?
It goes badly. He gets this really icy reception. Older Sakyans literally avoid him. They even send younger boys away so they don't have to interact with him.
That's incredibly rude, almost like they think he's contaminated.
Exactly. But the absolute worst part, the real humiliation, happens after he leaves.
What's that?
A slave woman comes out and washes the very seat he sat on with milk water. Publicly, and declares out loud that the seat was used by the son of a slave woman. Just a brutal public insult.
Oh, that's harsh. And someone hears it.
Yeah, a soldier who had gone back to grab something he forgot. He hears the whole thing.
And he tells Viḍūḍabha's people.
He does. Finds out the truth about Vasabhakhattiya's mother. Tells the prince's entourage.
And Viḍūḍabha finds out. I can only imagine his reaction.
Pure fury. He feels utterly humiliated, betrayed by years of lies. And he vows revenge right then and there. As you hear this, does it resonate? Have you ever felt that kind of deep betrayal or injustice?
It's a powerful story of that, for sure.
Yeah.
And the fallout is huge when King Pasenadi finds out.
He's furious, too. But not just at the Sakyans, he turns on his own wife and son.
Right. He strips them of their royal status, their privileges, basically treats them like slaves.
It's a really low point, but then the Buddha steps in again.
He tries to smooth things over.
He does. He visits Pasenadi and offers a different perspective. He argues that actually lineage through the father is what counts.
Interesting argument.
Yeah.
How does he back that up?
He tells another story, the Kathaharajataka. It's about a kid born to a really poor wood-carrying woman who ends up becoming king of a wealthy city. The point being, the mother's status didn't prevent the son's rise.
So emphasizing the paternal line is the key factor. Does Pasenadi buy it?
He does, yeah. The Buddha's reasoning persuades him. He accepts it and gives Vasabhakhattiya and Viḍūḍabha their status back.
For the time being, at least.
For the time being. But, wow, what an episode. It shows the messy reality of social status, the absolute devastation caused by deceit.
And also the Buddha's role, trying to find wisdom and navigate these incredibly tense situations. The Sakyan's actions, all based on hierarchy, really contrast with the Buddha's focus on trust built through real interaction, like with the monks earlier.
Okay, one more major thread here. Let's look at Bandhula's family and this pretty striking story about Licchavi arrogance, or hubris.
Right. We learned that Bandhula's wife, Mallikā, couldn't conceive for a long time.
Which was a big deal back then. Bandhula was actually thinking of sending her back to her family, as per the custom.
But before that happened, Mallikā went to see the Buddha.
Seeking advice?
Yeah. And the Buddha listened, then told her to just go back home, assuring her things would turn out okay.
And she trusted him.
She did. She went back to Bandhula.
And then...
Miraculously, she gets pregnant soon after.
Wow. But then she gets this really strange pregnancy craving.
Very specific, wasn't it? She desperately wanted to bathe in the Licchavis' special coronation pond in Vasabhakhattiya.
Which was, like, super sacred ground, heavily guarded, off limits.
Totally. But Bandhula may be thinking about his past experiences with powerful people, definitely driven by his wife's craving.
He decides to just go for it.
He does. Takes her to Vasabhakhattiya, somehow overpowers all the guards protecting the pond.
Single-handedly.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Lets Mallikā bathe, and then they make a quick getaway.
Okay, that's incredibly audacious. The Licchavis must have been furious.
Absolutely enraged. They felt deeply disrespected. So they chase after him.
With how many chariots?
500 chariots.
Yeah.
A massive force.
But wait, isn't Mahāli Bandhula's old friend with the Licchavis now?
He is. And he remembers Bandhula. He tries to warn the Licchavis.
What does he say?
He tells them basically, look out for certain signs of Bandhula's power. If you see them, just turn back. It's not worth it. Really wise advice.
But the Licchavis, are they listening?
Not at all. They're too proud, too angry, blinded by wanting revenge. They just keep chasing.
So Bandhula has to fight.
Well, he uses his skills strategically first. Makes their chariot wheels sink in the ground.
Great, sounds like thunder. Punches holes in their yokes, trying to deter them.
But nothing works. They just keep coming.
So it comes down to a final confrontation.
Yes. Bandhula fires one single arrow. just one,
Oh,
and pierces all 500 chariots and the armor of all 500 Licchavi kings inside them.
Yeah, all of them, with one arrow.
Apparently so. And the story says they die instantly when they take their armor off later.
That's unbelievable. An insane display of skill. And a brutal consequence for the Licchavis ignoring that warning.
Definitely. Hubris leading directly to destruction.
Yeah.
So Bandhula and Mallikā get back to Savatthi safely.
And then the miracles continue.
Somewhat. Mallikā gives birth to 16 sets of twins.
16 sets, so 32 kids. All strong and skilled.
That's the story. It creates this huge, powerful family, boosting Bandhula's influence even more.
And we also hear he gets known for being a fair judge.
Right. King Pasenadi even puts him in charge of legal stuff after Bandhula exposes some corrupt officials.
So his story highlights integrity, loyalty, but also the devastating results of pride on the other side.
Wow.
It's quite the narrative arc for him.
Okay, so stepping back from all these stories in Viḍūḍabha Vatthu, what are the big takeaways?
While trust comes up again and again, it's clearly paramount, maybe even more important than comfort or status.
Yeah, like the Kesava story showed.
Yeah.
And the flip side, the story with the Vasabhakhattiya, that shows how secrets and lies can just wreck things long term. Absolutely. Deception, even if it seems like a solution at the time, can have these huge damaging ripple effects.
And we definitely see how power structures, social hierarchies can cause so much resentment and conflict.
For sure. But there's also a glimmer of hope, right? Wisdom, like the Buddha shows, can offer ways to resolve things.
True, but then you have the Licchavis, showing how pride, that refusal to listen, just leads straight to disaster.
So thinking about all this, how might it connect to your life, listening right now? Maybe reflect on where trust plays a big role for you in relationships, at work, in your community.
Yeah, how do you build it? How do you keep it? And that Sakyan story,
Yeah,
it makes you think about authenticity, doesn't it?
it really does. The cost of pretending versus being genuine, and contrasting Bandhula, who acts out of loyalty and justice, with the Licchavis, consumed by pride.
It's a stark reminder about power, fairness, and the consequences of our actions within our own social worlds. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. We live in a world where, let's be honest, information can be murky. People's real intentions aren't always clear.
It can be hard to know who or what to trust.
Exactly. So how do you actively work to build genuine trust? How do you figure out what's really valuable in your interactions?
And maybe also consider the long game. What are the lasting effects for you, for others, of actions driven by feeling slighted, or by those deep-seated social inequalities, or just by refusing to see things from another angle?
Yeah, a lot to chew on there. We really hope this deep dive into Viḍūḍabha Vatthu gave you some fresh perspectives.
Thanks for joining us.